Hey guys, today we're talking about layering those up, like just get getting them sounding good. Hey, welcome to the video. Like, subscribe, all of that good sort of gear. This one's probably the first actual tip/trick video, which is more so relevant to home producers out there, because anyone who actually runs a studio would know this. What I'm going to show you guys is essentially how layering up the same guitar line can affect how your song sounds overall, right? A lot of people, when they're producing in their bedrooms and what have you, might think that one guitar layer per part is enough. And in some cases it can be. It depends on what you're going for. But I wanted to show you guys how you can help get, how I can help you guys get thick sounding guitars, like guitars that will actually fill the space. So to jump to our mix window here, going to ignore this track down here. I've had to pre-record this because my setup wasn't allowing me to record guitar while recording the video for some reason. It's like, thanks OBS and Pro Tools and all that for being weird. But anyway, this is the same tune that you guys would have heard if you watch my previous video on gain staging. And at the moment we just have my guitar, my bass and my drums. This guitar layer here is completely muted. I mean, that's sounding pretty good in its current state. However, I'm going to show you guys a couple of different things that you can do to help thicken up that guitar. Now, I know a lot of people sometimes think that they don't want a song to be overproduced. And by that I mean, have it sound like something that they're not able to replicate live. And I understand that, especially if you're like a 3-piece band or even a 4-piece band with 2 guitarists. You say something like, well, I don't want 5 or 6 guitar layers because we won't be able to pull that off live. I fully understand that. I get that. However, I'm not talking about recording a heap of different guitar parts. You can do that, and honestly, if you're aiming for a more professional sound recording, I recommend doing that a bit anyhow, but I'll save that for a later video. What I'm talking about is just simply re-recording the same guitar part a couple of times to help bring the overall sound to a more professional level. Okay, so if we look back over here, the first thing you can do, let's say that in this case, let's say that this is all I've been given in this session, is just these 3 instrument parts here: guitar 1, bass and drums. And I want to have this guitar sounding a bit thicker. Now, a lot of people will probably say something like, well, you can just double the guitar part. Okay, sure, no worries. Let's see what happens if I just double this guitar part. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to simply duplicate it, duplicate everything that's there. So now I've got an exact duplicate of this guitar part. All right. Now all that will happen is it'll be this guitar but louder. So I'll mute it, play it. Right, it doesn't really sound better, it just sounds louder. And if I wanted that, I could literally just turn this guitar volume up and get the same effect. Let me show you. Ready? So I'll have this, and then if I mute it and just turn this up, it's the same sort of sound, right? It's not real pleasant. One thing that you can do, let's say that this was the only guitar part that I had. Even if I pan left and right with it, literally sounds the same as if I have this on its own centered. Right, because it's the exact same information. Something that you could do is adjust the tonality of the guitars that are left and right. So I might play around with bringing the drive up on this one, maybe adjusting the mids a little bit, adjust the treble, right? And let's see what that sounds like. Still a pretty negligible difference, really. It just sounds kind of like you've EQ'd one of the guitars incorrectly. However, another thing that I could try, if I jump back across to here, could be to zoom in and, like, this is really pulling at straws, grasping at straws, to try and get the guitars to have a bit more stereo width, and I don't recommend this, okay? But I'll show you anyway. I'm going to simply adjust this track a tiny bit, all right? And now I'm going to show you a comparison of having this track on its own down the middle and then bring in the second track panned with both of them panned, okay? So all I've done is bring that one forward a tiny bit, okay? Let's jump back across to here. Right, and you can hear it has a bit of a difference there, but it's still not really thick, right? It's not thick enough, all right? Because it's, once again, it's the exact same information. All I've done is put it out of phase slightly, and if anything, it's just going to cause more troubles down the line, right? And you could play around with putting different plugins and effects and all that sort of gear. Like I do have several doubling plugins, but all that tends to do is a similar sort of thing. It adjusts the phase and makes a chorusing sound left and right, and it's not genuine. You know, if you're already recording one guitar layer, it's not really hard to just record another guitar layer, right? Some things that you can do to actually make it thicker is, let me just bring this one in, and I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this duplicate over here now. All right, delete. Bye bye. Yeah, go away. So I've got guitar one, and now I've got this second guitar take here. Right now, you'll notice that the sound waves and the information actually looks different. Right, so similar sort of peaks, troughs, and all that, but you'll notice that it is not identical. Right, if I zoom in. Right, zoom right in. Woo! Zoom right in. If it lets me. There you go. You can see that the information is slightly different. Okay, and this will sound a lot better. Okay, because it is a separate take. So let me do a little bit of a demonstration here. I'm going to set this volume to the same as my guitar one here. All right, so I've got guitar one, guitar two now. All right, I'm going to play this. I'm going to pan this guitar over to the light. Going to stop, pan the guitar over to the left, and introduce the fresh guitar. So this is what we've always started off with. All right, now I'm going to pan that over there, unmute this guitar, and I've got this over on the right. Now, because I have doubled the guitars, I probably don't need it all that loud, so I'm going to bring them down a little bit to probably -3 dB and see what that sounds like. Now, this is a bit of an extreme example, okay? You also don't need to pan fully hard left and fully hard right, okay? So you could do something like sit them both in the middle to start off with, and then adjust accordingly. And I've also noticed that my right guitar is a little bit quieter than my left, so I'm going to bring that up a little bit. All right, so now they should be. Okay, now notice how that sounds a lot thicker than just this on its own. Right, and it's because I have got it, layered up. Now, I obviously haven't needed to worry about writing a different guitar part or whatever else. It's simply double tracking, okay? If I want to make it more extreme, I could, of course, adjust my guitar amp settings within here. If you're recording through an actual amp, you can change things up to create as much diversity as you want, right? You could use a different amp head, you could use a different speaker cab, you could just use a different guitar. For this one, the initial guitar layer was my Gibson SG. This one I used my Fender Jazzmaster just because it was out at the time, right? But you can hear how this is something that I could recreate on stage reasonably easily. However, it gives your overall production a bit more of a professional sheen. Now, obviously not everything needs to be double tracked, but I recommend double tracking most things. And then even if you don't use something down the line, you can always take it out. It's much better to have more options to play around with than being stuck with one of each thing, right? The same way as when you're doing photography or whatever, you take several photos of everything. The same way that when Hollywood are making films, they do more than one take of every single thing, right? Layer it up, do 8 to 10 good takes of each instrument. It gives you options, right? And it gives you flexibility to play around as well, tonally speaking, okay? Now, little side note, if you really want to, I would recommend, like I said, even if you are just a three-piece, I would recommend layering up at least a couple of different guitar parts anyway, all right? Because it adds a bit more interest. And if you can't pull it off live, who cares? Do your own adaptation. If you're really that worried about it, then use it as a backing track. If you don't want to use a backing track because it's not legitimate or whatever else, then don't, all right? It doesn't matter. The people who are watching you aren't going to come up to you afterwards and question, hey, where was that guitar line where was that synth that I've been hearing on all your tracks and stuff? Why wasn't it there? No. Literally no one is going to care. All right? Speaking from experience, no one cares. Okay? If you are wanting to be a bit precious about it, then don't do it. But I'm going to go through that in another video with layering up actual different guitar parts and all that sort of gear. Okay? Anyway, I think that about calls it for this one. At least double track your parts, all right? Each part. Depending on what genre you're doing, I'd recommend maybe even triple or quadruple tracking each part. And if you don't use all of it, then you don't use all of it. That's all for today, guys. Enjoy. If you've got any suggestions for future videos, chuck them in the comments below. All right, catch it.